the anniversary of 9/11, I'm hoping that we all took a moment. I know that some students had a ceremony of sorts on Old Main Lawn, which is very cool. And I'm hoping that we all took a couple moments. Because this is big. The world shifted a little bit on this day, 16 years ago. And what happened in particular is that we geared up for war. And we went to war. And that's when we entered the war zone of Afghanistan. And then later we entered the war zone of Iraq. And this is big. Because many people died on this day, 9/11, and many, 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 many more people died in subsequent years. Innocent people. And many lives have been disrupted in ways that are just really almost impossible to comprehend. So, next slide. You have this distinction you need to make with the military. On one hand, military as protection. And on the other hand, military as an instrument of the state. And the state exists to reproduce the state, to strengthen the state. I mean the nation. To make nations powerful and to ensure that people in a nation have as much as they think they want or as much as they think they need. That's the role of one's government, to protect you and to look out for your interests. Well, what happened after we got Osama bin Laden out of Afghanistan, which was Rafi's country, our government, people in the government, decided, hey, we're going to go into Iraq. Because we fought a war with Iraq in the early 90s, but now we're going to actually go into Iraq. And we're going to take out this guy named Saddam Hussein, who's this really evil dictator. People didn't talk a lot about, so I'm going back 16 years. People didn't talk much about how we helped Saddam Hussein over the years. We helped keep him in power. We helped stabilize him in all these ways. Didn't talk much about that, but we were just going to go into Iraq. And it's very clear at the time and afterwards that we went into Iraq because of oil. Security, fundamental oil. People had their eyes set on Iraqi oil. Our government, our business, people in charge. Going to go after oil. Somebody else's oil. But we were going to go after it. And we're going to throw out Saddam Hussein. We're going to put a new government in power who will work with us. And then we will have access to the oil. It has since come out very clearly that those were primary motivations for going into Iraq. To get somebody else's oil. Okay? That's not even a radical idea anymore. But it's theirs. Yeah. That's not even a radical idea. It's just it's common knowledge at this point. So imagine if somebody came to war here because they wanted to get our coal or our natural gas. We'd be kind of upset about that. So here we have in Iraq. So next slide. So I gave a talk in 2010. And the talk was called A Radical Experiment in Empathy. And I talked about the Iraq War from the perspective of an average middle-class Iraqi, Arab Muslim living in Iraq, average middle class. Not anyone with extreme ideas, not anyone, mostly people who are just living their lives and primarily disengaged from politics, just like most Americans. And I walked people through how they would see and did see the Iraq War. Us invading Iraq overthrowing Saddam Hussein, causing just a ton of just disruption and oh my gosh, and ultimately wanting the oil. And that being really clear, and how Iraqis would see that. And I walked people through, and the talk went viral immediately in the Middle East. I started hearing back from lots of folks. It's since been viewed by, quite a number, a lot of people. And I heard back from one person in particular, lots of people, all over. It's particularly in the Middle East. And I heard back from one gentleman from Iraq. Next slide. Yo. And his name was Basim. And Basim said, listen, I don't know what you've heard about this talk, but I want to tell you, just as an average Iraqi, middle-class Iraqi, who doesn't really care about politics, who just doesn't care, my friends, my family, you are right on. Everything you said in that talk is right on the money. You walk people through the way you walked Americans through just to show them how we feel, what we're thinking, our experiments, putting them in our shoes, just people, just trying to live our lives, okay? So Basim and I established a friendship. We went back and forth. We video conferenced a fair amount. He would Skype into my classes. At the time, I was teaching an Intro to Sociology course. I was teaching about a section on war, 5 weeks on war. I would have him video conference in and talk to my students. What's it like? Here you are. You're in Iraq. The war's going on. He lived in Mosul, and Mosul, for the most part, was escaped a lot of the worst damages at the time from the war, and it was really, really nice. He talked in this class a number of times. And then, let me give you, go ahead, next slide. I'm going to run through these. And let me give you a little bit. Basim lived in the United States for a couple of years. He did his master's degree in Michigan. And this is his wife, Mayada. This is him in Michigan. Look at look at the glasses from the 70s. You probably have, some of your parents or grandparents have glasses like that. I used to have glasses like that. So there they are, college students. It looks like pizza on the floor, just hanging out, right? So this is an old photo. Next slide. There he is at graduation. Here's his cousin. Here's Mayada. She's beautiful. Look at him. He's not as handsome. Clearly he did well by convincing her to marry him. Just kidding, Basim. All right, next slide. Here he is with some American friends. Really enjoyed the U.S. Just really got a lot out of being in the U.S. Next slide. Here they are again. Here he is with some American friends. Next slide. Here's his house in Iraq. So he's middle class family, and this is a big family home, so a lot of people can live here. Beautiful house, right? Next slide. Here's his brother's house. Nice. Next slide. Here's the entrance of the University of Mosul. Look. Here's the shopping mall in Mosul. You see, it's life, just a life, average. See, this is the point of my talk. Iraqis just living life. If we want to convince ourselves that these people have always been at war and they're always fighting and they're always this and always that, well, then it makes it a lot easier to just send our military over there and conquer them and take their oil. But if we see them as being just like us, then we meet people like Basim and we look at that shopping mall, and that looks like a shopping mall that I've been in many times in the United States and many countries of the world. Then it's a little different. Here's downtown Mosul, beautiful city. So that's where he's from. That's where his families lived for many, many years. Beautiful, just life. Okay? So, here's the story. 2 years ago, I was sitting in a hotel room in St. Louis. and I just returned from Qatar, actually. So I was in jet lag mode, and it was 3 in the morning, and I woke up, and I heard buzzing on my phone, and I pulled up Facebook, and there scrolled through, and there was a post, and it was in Arabic. It was from Basim. And I knew immediately something was wrong. And I didn't know, I couldn't tell what it was, but there were a lot of emojis with sad faces and tears, and a couple people responded in English enough that I started copying text out in Arabic and putting it into Google Translate and translating, and I realized, oh my God, something is wrong. Turns out, what happened was the Americans had bombed his house and his brother's house. And an errant bomb or bad coordinates or something, but not anything dealing with him. Not anything dealing with him. Not involved in anything bad or negative. An accident in some way, but bombed his house. Okay? Next slide. So, his wife died. His daughter died. That's his daughter in the bottom left. His brother died. And his nephew died. That's his brother's son. Now, this is just a bomb. Didn't even make the American newspaper, not even on page 17 or 18 or 26 of the New York Times or somewhere. Nothing. Irrelevant. But for me, it's not just a bomb. Next slide. So this is what Basim typed to me in Facebook that morning at 3 in the morning. He said, Sam, this photo of Toka was taken in our kitchen the night before they killed her. They, my government. Okay? And my mayada is gone. My light is no more. Look. Next slide. That's his house. Right? Next slide. That's his brother's house. Right? He himself suffered serious damage, broke his hip, had to go, later was able to go to Turkey for an operation. Next slide. Then he sent that. Now, here's what I want to ask you. How would you be if a foreign government came to your land in search of your resource and your life was destroyed and your light was no more? How would you be? How would you think? What would you feel? How would you engage with those people? How would that be for you? Your beautiful spouse, gone. Everything, your photos, your videos, everything destroyed. How would you be?